Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. It's more than a year away, but already the candidates are upon us, and it will soon be time to vote. We may already be sick and tired of seeing the various candidates on all sides trying to tell us what we want to hear in order to get our vote. There have been debates with one angry politician voicing angry rhetoric about the other one and the other one doing the same thing back, and it may be that we end up not liking any of them, but forced to choose the lesser evil. We may have the greatest system of government in the world, but it's not always pleasant, and sometimes we might wonder about the people we are voting for. This week we are looking at wisdom literature in the Old Testament, and in particular when that literature is presented as a story. And the one we are considering today reminds me a bit of one of those political speeches. This time at least, you can tell the truth of what's being said. The story we are talking about is found in Judges 9, and let me set the stage for you. In this time in Israel's history, there was no king or even a prophet. The people were in something of a pattern. They would fall away from God, and God would then raise up someone to oppress them, and they would cry out to God, and God would raise up someone called a judge to deliver them, and they would walk with God again until the pattern repeats. One of those judges was a man named Gideon, and his is an interesting story. He did deliver the people from the oppression of the Midianites, but the longer his story goes on, there seems to be more and more of Gideon and less of God. It seemed that Gideon himself was falling away from God. When Gideon died, he left something of a vacuum of leadership. He had 70 sons by his many wives, and no one seemed to have control as the people devolved into bedlam. Finally, one of those sons, a man named Abimelech, went to the town of Shechem and convinced his mother's family to make him their ruler. Once he had some power, he hired folks the Bible describes as worthless and reckless fellows and killed his brothers, executing all 70 on one stone. Maybe I should have said 69, because the youngest brother, Jotham, hid himself and escaped. And when all this was done, the other cities came together and declared Abimelech king. When Jotham heard this, he went up on a mountain and told the people this parable. Listen to me, you lords of Shechem, so that God may listen to you. The trees once went out to anoint a king over themselves. So they said to the olive tree, reign over us. The olive tree answered them, shall I stop producing my rich oil by which gods and mortals are honored, and go to sway over the trees? Then the trees said to the fig tree, you come and reign over us. But the fig tree answered them, shall I stop producing my sweetness and my delicious fruit, and go sway over the trees? Then the trees said to the vine, you come and reign over us. But the vine said to them, shall I stop producing my wine that cheers gods and mortals, and go to sway over the trees? So all the trees said to the bramble, you come and reign over us. And the bramble said to the trees, if in good faith you are anointing me king over you, then come and take refuge in my shade. But if not, let fire come out of the bramble and devour the cedars of Lebanon. And so Jotham openly called his brother a bramble, and warned the people that if they had not chosen him in good faith, it wouldn't turn out well. Then Jotham ran away and hid for fear of his brother. And sure enough, things did not turn out well for Abimelech. He was constantly at war with rebellious cities, and eventually, as he drew near to one city wall, a woman threw down a millstone and crushed his head. In that day and age, if you were killed by a woman, you were a weak laughingstock with no respect at all. The bramble known as Abimelech was devoured by his own fire. Maybe Jotham's words might speak to us in our own time as well. Let's make God our leader. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.